Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a space where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so, again, wherever you're joining us, we just want to let you know that you're safe. This is good space. We dig deep into every single study that we do together. And so today, we're going to do what we do. We're going to delve into some verses. We're going to dissect them. We're going to look at the deeper, richer meaning. We're going to look at the context. It's so good. But before we do, let me remind you to look down below at the descriptions. You'll see there again, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can click the little bell every time a new one comes up. You'll know about it. You can also journey with us financially, help us continue putting out these podcasts that way. All the descriptions and the links, they're right there below. And so today we continue this series, Genesis. Now, this is going to be a longer one, right? We've only gotten through almost through chapter 3. Today we'll finish chapter 3. That's only 3 chapters, right? And we've already done so much study, but here's the beauty of this. This book is filled with so much depth, so much beauty, and to just skim them over, to read them like historical accounts and move on, it bypasses so much beauty, so much application. That's why we think it's so important to really delve in deep. Every word has some kind of meaning. If we really did that every day, if we took one word and it did a whole study, this would take years. And that's why rabbis often, it'll take a very long time for them to move through just one book, right? Genesis in a rabbinical study, it's going to take them a good 2 years to really move through that book in a fashion that they would feel comfortable with. We're going to do this in a couple months, but we're going to find a lot of depth still. And so, as always, let me remind you, context is everything, right? This is so important to understand context. And so, again, Israel is a tribe, right? During that time period, there were hundreds of other tribes. This is just one tribe right there in the Middle East, one tribe out of many. But this tribe is really interesting, and their story, it's held the test of time, right? And so what happens for this group of people is, again, like many tribes, they are basically, they're taken captive by larger tribes, right? Larger empires. And so their journey starts with Babylon, 587 BC. 587 BC, what takes place there again, their temple's destroyed, their people are marched hundreds of miles on foot. There in Babylon, they're essentially looking at assimilation, right? They could lose all their stories, all their culture, all their tradition, like all the other tribes are doing. When your tribe loses to another empire, you traditionally would take on their values. You would take on their stories. You would worship their gods. But again, this is one of the defining things that sets Israel apart from other nations. They choose not to assimilate. And one of the reasons they are able to hold on to their culture, their values, their identity is not because they wrote a history book. No, they created this beautiful piece. They put together all the stories, all the wisdom traditions, all of the metaphor. They put it all together. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They build Torah, the most beautiful gift the Jews have for the world. And so Torah, again, is a written response to the fears of assimilation. We're going to lose all the recipes, Grandma. We got to write it down, right? This is the meaning. And so Torah is this beautiful compilation, again, poetry, prophetic musings, warnings, story, narrative, metaphor. It's all there. It is so rich. And it's the reason why I keep coming back to it over and over again. It's so beautiful. Yeah. And so Torah, once again, is a complete narrative of Israel miniaturized through its tellings. So every character, every story has a purpose. And again, the purpose is to share with Israel, this is who we are, this is who we aren't. This is where we've kind of missed the point sometimes. We've not allowed wisdom to journey with us. And this is when we have. Let's choose this path over this one. Yeah, that's the story. And so together we looked at Genesis 1. We moved through that one, and again, we understand deep, beautiful metaphor. Kind of a comparison between Babylon's God and Israel's God. Babylon's God steps in. He says, I'm going to create chaos, right? Whereas Israel's God says, no, I'm going to step into the chaos. I'm going to create order. I'm going to clear some space. I'm going to fill the space. And I'm going to fill the space with beauty and life more abundantly. That's what Israel's God does. And that's what Israel feels they're called to do in the world. And again, what a beautiful idea, right? In the midst of so much chaos right now, right? In the midst of so much frustration, anger, division, Israel felt they were called to bring life and order. Yeah, right? Beautiful. What if that's something you felt called to do too? So Israel, again, they write this piece, and it's really a poem. For the ancient people, they would have read this as poetry. It would have been sung. Now, chapters 2 and 3, this is campfire. This is what we tell around the stories. And this is why, again, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, they don't agree, right? If you look at it as historically accurate tellings, the two simply don't agree because it was not written as history. Never the point. So today we delve into chapter 3, verses 19 through 24. We finish off chapter 3 together. And so let's do that today. We're going to look at a couple of these verses. We're going to go in depth over a couple of these phrases, and I think you're going to enjoy this as much as I am. Next week, we're going to delve into chapter 4. We're going to look at some sons and daughters, some beautiful significance there, shepherds, gardeners, all of that. But today we finish chapter 3. We look at some weird, interesting ideas, some phrases that people have just kind of bypassed because they're odd. So we're going to look at what those mean today. So here we go. Chapter 3, 19 through 24. And the man named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all life. And the Lord God made from Adam and for his wife shirts of skin, and he dressed them. Now the Lord God said, behold, man has become like one of us, having the ability of knowing good and evil. And now lest he stretch forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Again, I've had so many people that have read this and said, I don't remember this in Genesis because we kind of skipped it over. Yeah, it's interesting when you actually read it. Yeah. Continuing on. And the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the soil whence he had been taken. And he drove the man out, and he stationed from the east of the garden the cherubim and the blade of the revolving sword. It almost sounds like some kind of J.R.R. Tolkien, right? To guard the way of the tree of life. So those are the verses we'll look at today. So starting from the get-go, notice this. And the man named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all life. Now again, many people look at this and they'll say, see, we all came from Eve, right? We all came from Eve. Adam would never have had a belly button. Ha ha ha. Again, metaphor, right? Eve, when they're talking about this first descendant, right? This first person, this first story, this is deeply, deeply metaphor. The word Eve actually had this deep association with life. Simple, right? From Eve, there is life. Makes sense. The mother, right? Mother Earth, right? Mother Eve. I think you get the connections. This has all these connections to being mother, bearing fruit. That's the idea of the word Eve in the Hebrew. And so wherever Eve goes, life is going to follow. You get that? Again, life should follow humanity. I want you to think about this. In your jobs, in your hobbies, in your relationships, are they bringing life or are they bringing pain, brokenness? Think about that. Because everywhere you go, deep inside of you, I believe there is a design. It wants to bring life. Everything we do should bring life. And my question is, if it doesn't bring life, if the relationship, the hobby, the job, if it does not bring life, maybe it's time for a change, right? Life is such a beautiful gift. Maybe it's time for a change. If those things that you are doing on a daily basis, so many hours in the day, if they don't bring life, there maybe needs to be a change. Yeah. Eve, life, brings life fruit. It brings life to fruition. It brings fruit. Eve. Good. So here we go. And the Lord God made Adama, right? And for his wife, shirts of skin and dressed them. Now, some people will read this. If you look at the actual connotation here, it's animal skins, which means essentially God like murdered a bunch of animals. PETA. What do you do with this? Again, metaphor. It's a story told around a campfire. How else are you going to cover Adam and Eve? Right? We don't have the fig leaves being brought up here. It's animal skins because that's what tribal people would be wearing, right? Tribal people during that time era are not wearing fig trees, fig leaves, any of that stuff. No. They're wearing animal skins. And so, of course, animal skins, but there's something deeper here. When you look at this idea, animal skins, we understand again, man is supposed to bring life, supposed to bring order, right? And yet there's death. Yeah, there is death. In order for man's shame to be covered sometimes, in order for the guilt to be dealt with, sometimes some things die. Sometimes it's as simple as our innocence, right? Our innocence dies. And so here's the idea. Wherever man goes, there's life, but there's also death. Yeah. We are covered in it. Everywhere we go, we leave footprints, don't we? We either bring more life or more death to the world, to the environment, to other cultures, communities, systems. Everywhere we go, we leave footprints. And the shame of that decision, it's going to follow us. There will be marks, right? We wear it, don't we? And so, again, we create the A-bomb, right? We pollute the earth. We leave marks sometimes. We create terrible wars, holocausts. This stuff happens. And the earth and its people were left with marks. And there's shame, and there's guilt, and there's fear that follow. And then we get it right sometimes too, don't we? Yeah. We help each other in community. We feed the poor. We help the sick. We help the widow, the orphan, the stranger within our gates. We do those activities, right? We do those things, and there's life. We create peace treaties with other nations. We do that, don't we? We plant trees where some have been torn down. So man will leave a footprint no matter where he or she goes. The question, of course, is what kind of footprint will you leave? Because we will always be leaving a footprint. What kind of footprint? Will it be life or will it be death? What will we leave behind? What will our legacy be? That is the question Israel is asking right there in that verse. Yeah, it's heavy. Isn't this so good? All right, here we go. We'll keep going. Behold, man has become like one of us. This is an interesting one, right? Man has become like one of us, having the ability of knowing good and evil. So essentially, if man is like God, then mankind has now God status, right? Mankind is like God. We're all gods. Is that what it's saying? Somehow, like this shift, this eating the apple has now turned us all into a Zeus-like character. And if that's the case, I got to know, where's my hammer? Where's my lightning? Yeah? Not the point. No. We miss the perspective here. There is this deeper understanding, knowledge, and wisdom, right? When we have the gift of knowledge, when we see the deeper things in the world, this is what the Hebrews consider a divine sight. You see beyond, you see the bigger picture. You're aware, right? Awareness. There's one quote that I absolutely love. It says this, man has the inexpressible gift of self-consciousness. We know that we are. This is the Genesis account. Isn't that interesting? It's the larger story of mankind's awakening to a self, a soul. Isn't that fascinating? This could fit really well with someone who believes in evolution and someone who believes in the creation account. It could fit either way. It's that moment in time, according to this Rabbi Rashi, it's that moment in time where man became aware that he is a self, he has a soul, he is a person, right? It's the great distinguisher between man and beast. Think about that. Your animal, your cat, your dog, whatever, they are not aware that they have a self, right? That's not something that animals that we know of, at least, have the understanding of, that they are self-conscious, they are self-aware. Mankind is. We call that a beautiful gift. We call that sometimes the soul, right? The consciousness. And so for the Hebrews, they believe, many rabbis, I would argue most, that this moment is actually a deep connection to this idea of when man begins to have this consciousness, this idea that there's more than just me. My actions have consequences. I am a soul. I am a being. I am self-aware. Interesting, right? Yeah. And so wisdom, of course, the knowledge of this, there's a cost to it, right? When you are understanding now, I am a being, I am self-aware, my actions have consequences, and those consequences can reach other people. That whole idea there, positives and negatives. Now I no longer just do what I want to do. I'm no longer free to just roam around and do whatever I want, am I? I have to consider things a little deeper. There is a being here, a conscious being. I'm aware of self, which means I'm also aware deeply of other self, right? Other beings, other people. This is heavy. This is deep. Yeah? So consider, I want you to think about this. Wisdom comes at a cost. Wisdom comes at a cost. Think about the many times in your life where you have gained wisdom, but it typically came from a moment where there were some pretty painful experiences associated with it. You gained wisdom, but you gained wisdom because you made the mistake, didn't you? Yeah, you dated the wrong people enough to realize what a good relationship looks like, right? You had enough jobs, really terrible ones, that you finally were able to appreciate the really good one that came along. You experienced enough pain, enough brokenness in order to gain the wisdom. We call that making mistakes as part of being human. We learn from our mistakes, but sometimes those mistakes are a bit costly. They hurt, but it's all part of being human. And being human is tov, right? Going back to that original word there in the Hebrew, it's good. It's all part of this thing. We learn, we change, we grow. Hopefully we learn from the mistakes. We gain a little bit of wisdom as we acquire that knowledge. Continuing on, it says this, lest he stretch forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Now, is this saying that like God is terrified that man is going to live forever? He's going to be too powerful for God to control. Is that the idea here? No, not at all. But it could be kind of easily twisted that way, right? If you're taking this very literally, you could go a couple weird directions, right? But again, remember the deeper metaphor. Man has picked up knowledge. It's made him powerful. What do you do with the knowledge? What do you do with that knowledge as you go on your path now? As you become self-aware, what do you do with it? Do you allow wisdom to steer it, or do you create an A-bomb, right? And so here's another quote that I find really interesting. This odd passage is really a poignant message of man's mortality. That's kind of an interesting concept, isn't it? We don't live forever, do we? Yeah, which some would argue is an absolute gift, right? It actually makes life more valuable because you only have so many steps, so many breaths. And that time then would become so sacred, so important, so beautiful. What will you do with the time you have left? Death gives life more meaning. Yeah. And so we left the garden, right? The place of innocence. We left that place. And once you've experienced knowledge, you've grown, right? You cannot unsee it. You can't go back. Once you've experienced it, you don't go back. Yeah, and that's why some people, they at a party, right? You're at a party and all they're doing is talking about that football game. Oh, if only I had caught the ball and made the touchdown, we would have won. And that was 20 years ago, right? This person has not moved on. The rest of you, you look back and you think, that was so long ago. I'm a different person today. But it's very easy to get stuck looking back, isn't it? There's a danger there. Looking back, living in the past, it causes us to stop forward movement, doesn't it? Yeah. Once we've done the thing, once we've learned the thing, looking back, living backwards does not bring life. It stops our forward motion. And again, like any path, if you stop long enough, that path gets shorter and shorter the less steps you take. It's going to continue. You only, again, have so many breaths, so many steps. And so if you wait too long, your path is going to ultimately shorten anyways. It reminds me of the Robert Frost poem. And you've heard it before. Many people, they've heard this poem, but they've missed it. Because I think Hallmark has kind of cheapened it, right? Often like we do with the Bible. The poem was not entitled The Road Less Traveled. It wasn't. That's not the actual poem's title by Robert Frost. The title of it is The Road Not Taken. Because Robert Frost, what he was doing is this. He was saying, I'm looking back and I'm wondering about the road that I didn't take, the decision I didn't make. And I'm wondering what would have happened if I had gone this direction instead of that direction. And so what he's saying is, if I got stuck there, though, the longer I wait, the longer we stay and we don't choose the path, we don't walk it, the journey we are on gets shorter and shorter. And he says, so what we do now is we need to walk. We need to choose the path. Walk the path. Walk it with wisdom and do the very best we can with the decisions we make. And sometimes we make poor decisions, but we walk the path. We continue on the journey. And we don't live in the past, but we choose to live in the present, and we learn to walk it. And as we walk it, as we make mistakes, we pick up more and more tools that help us live a better, fuller life. The path gets richer and richer with the more knowledge and the more wisdom we acquire. That's the beauty here. And so it finishes here. It says that he stationed these angels, right? He drives man out. And he stations these angels east of the Garden of Eden. And the cherubim and the blade and the revolving sword, all this, again, all big metaphor, right? To say that man is no longer in a place of innocence. He's no longer there. He's no longer allowed there. It would be impossible to go back once you've experienced the thing. And so oftentimes you'll see all throughout the Bible, east is almost always associated with like a time of innocence, right? A time of peace and a time of perfection, right? Maybe not perfection, but a time where everything just clicked. It was good. It was paradise. That's the idea. So whenever you hear east, they're moving away. They're stepping away from the thing where there was innocence. And so man steps away, and now he has to walk the path, right? He has to step into the unknown, and that's scary, and it's dangerous, and it's filled with more pain, more brokenness, yet also more beauty, more wisdom, more knowledge, more cycles, right? And this is what Israel's doing. They're walking the path. They're experiencing new wisdom, new knowledge, and hopefully they're going to choose to allow wisdom to steer them on their path. Yeah? So good. What do we do with this? How do we take this home? Finishing chapter 3. Here's what I would say. There's a really interesting lesson I gained from this, and what I see Israel learning as well. And that's simply how you choose your path. Again, think of Israel now. You've lost your innocence, right? You've seen the thing that can't be unseen. And now you choose to walk your journey. And the journey, again, it's painful. And sometimes you wish you could go back, but you can't, right? You can't go back. So you walk your path. But how do you choose which paths should you take or not? Which paths should be part of your journey or not? This is really important, especially for Israel during that time. So I've written a couple ideas here, and I want to share them with you. Number one, When you're thinking of your path, when you're thinking of the road to take, whatever decision it is you're attempting to make, I would say number one, I'm learning this in my own life. Interview people who are already doing the thing that you want to do. I said interview 10 people. The more the merrier, right? Ask people, sit down with mentors, ask people, hey, do you love the thing you're doing? And they'll tell you, right? Anytime someone takes an interest in what you're doing, it's exciting. And so sit with these people, ask them questions about what they're doing. And truth be told, you will hear some things and you're thinking, I didn't think that was part of that, right? I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but you have to do what? Right? Whatever the thing is, ask questions and you will get a lot of interesting stories, responses, and it may help you in the path you choose. Another thing, what are you most passionate about? Ask yourself that question. What are the things that really make you come alive? That path that you choose, it should connect with whatever that passion is. If you're choosing paths that don't have a connection to that passion, you are going to find yourself feeling really empty, really void of meaning. And that's why for me, I took time to really understand this. I create safe space where people can grow. It's what I do. It's what I love doing. I can do that as a teacher. I can do that as a pastor, as a blogger, podcaster. I can do that in so many ways. But understanding what my passion is will help me in choosing the different paths on my journey. Number 3, your regrets will shine light into what you really want in life. I'm learning this is so true. Oftentimes, we'll look back and we'll think, oh, I wish I'd done that or wish I'd done that. But we won't actually let that steer us, will we? We'll just sit and live in the past. Whereas those are really good indicators for us. Those are awesome indicators to let us know, oh, you know what? If I regretted doing that, maybe I should do it differently next time. Yeah. Maybe I should choose to flip the script and do it a little differently. If I regret that thing in the past, not doing that thing, maybe I should do the thing now on this new path I'm on. Yeah. Oftentimes your regrets can be really great indicators of where you should be going. And then the last one, I like this one. This is the airport test. And here's the idea. I want you to imagine that 5 years from now, you run into an old friend, right, at the airport. And your friend asks you how you're doing, what you've been up to, you know, whatever friends will do there. And given that you've spent the 5 years building your dream life, whatever that thing is, doing the thing, following the path you want, I want you to ask yourself, what would your response be? What would you like your response to be? You meet them at the airport. They ask those questions. The airport tests, basically, it takes the boring 5-year plan and it kind of makes it sexier. Yeah. What do you want to be able to tell someone that you did in 5 years? Because whatever that is, I have a feeling it's not going to be something boring. It's not going to be something that doesn't follow your passions. It's going to be something that you're excited about. Let that also be an indicator for the direction and the path you choose. Everyone, thank you so much for allowing us to continue delving into these books. Again, Israel is having to ask these really difficult questions of themselves, which is why I think today it's so applicable for anyone. No matter what stage you're in, these lessons are universal. And I think they're so beautiful and filled with life. So everyone, thank you so much again for coming. I just want to remind you, if you want to partner with us, please consider giving donations. You just go to ethos-church.org/donate. These are tax-deductible donations you can give. And again, it helps us keep what we're doing alive, really. It keeps getting these videos, podcasts, blogs, Ethos living room sessions, all of it. We are able to do that every week. So we again thank you for your support. Also, that Ethos living room sessions, we're getting a lot of people from all over the nation. Chicago, Nashville, Florida, Arizona, Colorado, California, Washington. I'm trying to think if I missed any of them, Leo. I don't know. All over the place. Yeah, we get people from all over the nation coming. And so please consider joining us the first and the third Saturday of every month, 10:30 Pacific time. We'd love to have you there. Even if you want to just be a fly on the wall and listen, that's okay too. And lastly, please hit the subscribe button. We'd love to get more and more people viewing these videos. We think they're really good. And we get that, yeah, YouTube has some other channels, but we really enjoy the YouTube venue. Please click subscribe at the YouTube venue. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. And next week, I can't wait to share some ideas from Genesis chapter 4. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.